Welcome back to another episode of the Gryd Draft Show with Mike Guido. I'm EJ Savage, and we are back again doing another video. I noticed that I did not change my time on from daylight savings time, so it says that we've already been going for an hour. Mike, how do you feel? You're already in an hour.
Yeah, that's right, man. It feels like it went by fast. I had no idea.
Yeah. We have not been super consistent recently. I got sick. Mike got sick at one point. I had a little miniature vacation thing in there. So, yeah, it's been hard to get on here and do it, but we're back and we're talking polarizing players for the 2025 NFL draft. And we're talking some draft theories, some stuff that we're interested to see where Shedeur Sanders lands. Is he going to go top 3? Is he going to fall out of the top 10 entirely? Stuff like that is super, super interesting when it comes to the draft. And, those simple moves like a Shedeur Sanders going 2 overall can have big, massive effects on the draft. The trickle-down effects. So with that being said, let's just jump straight into it, Mike. Who is a polarizing player that you would like to talk about first?
Let's talk about Mike Green, because, this is a guy that I think is interesting because I feel like his stock is rising rather than falling, despite there being some, I wouldn't, I wouldn't really glaze this over, but they seem like some pretty serious, it's some pretty serious off-field stuff.
Yeah, character concerns absolutely with Mike Green.
Character concerns.
It seemed like through the Senior Bowl stuff, he answered a lot of questions with that. Can he play against better talent? At the Senior Bowl, he was very dominant, answered a lot of those questions. But then the off-field stuff, it seemed like through the Combine and the Senior Bowl and just getting in there with the interview processes with teams and scouts, it seemed like he put a lot of that stuff to rest. I would be very shocked if Mike Green didn't go inside of the top 20 just based on the talent. He's a 17-plus sack guy. He has that bend around the edge. He can play the run game and set the edge as well. It's just the character concerns was there, and then the lack of talent that he really faced. But overall, I think that he's already answered those questions, and so he's a guy that, like you mentioned, is kind of rising in the stock department despite some of those character concerns that he was pinned on early with him. What were you hearing about him?
Yeah, there was some sexual assault allegations thrown his way. And again, we don't need to get into the super nitty-gritty details about that, but it is something that kind of lays within his background. He's a freak, right? He's physically, I think he's a monster. He's one of these guys that has so much bend. I think his first step is unbelievable. I think you characterized it the right way. I don't see him going outside of the top 20. The team that I see most tied to, it's very specific for kind of like a mid-first round expected kind of player. But the team that I keep hearing with him is the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep, I was just about to say that.
I keep hearing the Atlanta Falcons with his name. So that destiny, and it's a great fit, by the way, talent-wise and position of need and all that stuff, it makes a lot of sense for them to do that. But yeah, listen, if Mike Green can keep everything under control and everything like that, he can be coached, put all of this other stuff behind him, then I think he's got a really good NFL career ahead of him. It all matters of what system he goes into, but I think no matter what, those physical traits that he puts forward translate. He's just a really, really solid prospect, and he might need a little bit of time, but I don't know. He's one of the most interesting players in the draft because he went from somebody that nobody had ever heard of to now being, one of the maybe 3 or 4 best edge rushers in the entire draft.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting little player here.
Yeah. And another thing is people talk about these small school guys, and there is something to that based on the level of competition they're facing. But there's also the fact of this is their only guy we have to focus on, so they can hit you with the double teams. They can keep the tight end in line to help with blocking assignments and stuff like that. So when it comes to a player of Mike Green's talent, he gets a lot of the focus. It's not like in Ohio State where they have boom, boom, boom along the line. it's one guy you got to focus on. So that you gotta put that into perspective. He answered a lot of the questions at the Senior Bowl as well. So
he's so fast. I mean, like that, like that's the thing that gets me with him is that like the guy's like 250, 260 pounds, and he runs 5. Like the guy is so
great combine
on his feet, dude. It's so insane. So.
Yeah, we'll go into another edge rusher here, and it's James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Shout out Bryson Carver, a big Tennessee fan. Also a Gryd Network affiliate. But yeah, he is a guy that has those character concerns along the lines of like a Micah Parsons with the hazing and stuff like that in his past. And from what I've been hearing, it's actually worse than what a Micah Parsons had, dealt with. The thing with James Pierce Jr. is he probably has the quickest first step in this entire draft. Of course, Abdul Carter is up there. But man, this guy, he would be absolutely a top 10 talent based on film, in my opinion, if he did not have these character concerns. And there's people thinking that he could fall all the way to the second round because of this stuff. Talk about James Pierce Jr. and what you saw on the field based on the film, and then what you're hearing from outsider knowledge and reports on him.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with him, right? Because a lot of the things that you hear, it can be a little bit conflicting. But the big thing for me that I kept hearing was that his work ethic is terrible, and that he doesn't take coaching well, right? Like it's really those kind of things. Now, again, off the field, I'm not sure what there is, but I've heard everything that you've heard of that. This is a guy who, talent-wise, I mean, you're talking about James Pierce is one of those players where like Abdul Carter's the best edge rusher in the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
But James Pierce, as far as talent, I wouldn't put too far behind Abdul Carter. Like, I really think James Pierce is that good. But
I do too. I mean, whenever I watched him, I was wondering, like, where is the discrepancy from him? Like, exactly.
He can take over a game, and that's the thing, is like he can really disrupt an entire offense, and those kinds of talents are really rare. So like I have a really hard time believing that James Pierce falls out of round 1. Like do I think he could go
I think like a Buccaneers is a really good spot for him at 19.
The Bengals, something like that. Like I think it's something like that. You can find a spot for him to land. But like if Carolina decided to take him at 8, that's not a reach for me. I mean,
that's what I
don't know the kid. So if his if he's really this much of a problem in the locker room with coaches and stuff, like if he's this much of an issue, then it's going to steer teams away just because he's not going to fit the culture. But talent-wise, he's among the top in the draft, I think.
Yeah, and you look at like a Panthers team that dealt with like a Greg Hardy before, and one of those guys that are kind of character concern, guy that's not the best in the locker room, not a good leader. How early do you take a guy like that? You know what I mean? Yeah. This is a strange draft because after about pick 5, 6 through about 21 for me is relatively the same as far as value that you're getting. Obviously, if you have a positional need that you're really trying to hammer down, you might reach. But I really don't see that top blue chip talent as much as years past, especially with the wide receivers. Really, despite the running backs, it's not a super deep class in any facet. You got some pretty decent tight ends at the top, but then it falls off a cliff, and then it goes to another, group of those guys, and another. Quarterbacks aren't there for me. A lot of the offensive tackles are dealing with their own athletic deficiencies, whatnot. So there's just a whole host of things. So if you are a team that's like, this guy meets all of our thresholds, all of our measurements, but he's not the leader, and he has some off-field concerns, how early do you take him? You said the Panthers at 8. I kind of see the same thing. I don't see the Jags going with a defensive end. Raiders are always an outlier, man. I really feel like they're growing Genty, but yeah, I could definitely see the Panthers as a team that would take a shot on him. But I'm really looking in that 16 or 15 with the Falcons, depending on if they go with a Mike Green or not. To that 24 range as the range that he'll probably land in. But if he does drop out, man, he would be a player I would be looking to go up and get at the top of the second.
That's the thing though, is that like you made a good point of like where this is a draft that is not overly strong at the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not seeing that many blue chippers, right? Like, I mean, you and I have talked about it. I mean, there's only a handful, right? Like we think that Abdul Carter is really good. We think Travis Hunter is really good. And
Genty are those are my only three.
Ashton Genty, probably, right? I mean, I think Ted McMillan has kind of fallen off in a lot of ways as far as that, especially with he's actually somebody I want to talk about next as well, just because he's not a huge like off the field concern, but there are some things that he's said recently that may steer teams away. So I want to talk to you about that also. But this could be the draft where, like, if you're a team like Carolina, you're a team like the Saints, right? Where you're sitting at 8, 9, 10, 11, and you're like, okay, I have a choice here between taking somebody who's a little safer, somebody like Michael Williams, somebody like Jalen Walker, like somebody in that ilk, right? Or I can gamble on talent, right? I can gamble on James Pierce. I can gamble on Mike Green, right? Like, I could go for somebody like that. This might be the draft to do so, because how much of a difference are you really getting in value, like you said, from like pick 5 to pick 25? You know what I mean? Like there's a 20 pick gap here to where, or a 20 pick window where like you're not seeing too much of a difference in actual real draft value. So
and this is what I'm talking about with James Pierce, is that he has that talent where he could go top 5 if everything off the field was crisp and clean, like scouts like it to be. He could go top 5. However, you've got to factor in the outside stuff, the outside noise, what his family is like, and if he's going to be a distraction with social media or whatever it is, right? If he's going to be a leader in the locker room. However, you're trying to figure out what talent is this kid and does he fit into what we're trying to do. I know for the Panthers, they're looking at this year as a barometer of, are we keeping Bryce Young as our future at quarterback or not? They don't like this quarterback class. They're not going to be a player in this quarterback class. So if you can get a difference maker on the edge that can get your quarterback in short field situations, you absolutely take that. You know what I mean? So whether it is a shot, as you're taking some risk there, that stuff is something you have to do for an organization that's like the Panthers, that hasn't been to the Super Bowl since they had Cam Newton in the MVP year. So it's one of those things, man. He is a very polarizing player. It's going to be very interesting to see where he goes. You said you wanted to talk about Ted McMillan, though. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this.
So I love, you and I have talked about it on several different occasions. I love Ted McMillan, the player, right? Like, I think just big of I think he's that sort of talent. Now again, like he's not, he doesn't have top line speed, but as far as route running, high pointing the football, winning the 50-50, like all of that, like I think he has all of those tools that are going to translate really, really well. Like he's one of the guys, like I think him, and you can make the argument, I think, for Matthew Golden.
Yeah. It looks like, Mike, you're frozen, so I don't know if you can hear me. With Matthew Golden, he came in, he answered a lot of the questions on what he could be through the combine, running that blazing speed and actually beating out his own teammate, which a lot of people thought had a chance at beating the record, in Isaiah Bond. Answered the durability concerns he had a little bit earlier in his career at Houston. He's a guy that's definitely risen up with the process and stuff. But he went from a potential top 5 pick down to where he's going to fall in somewhere in between those teens now, it seems like.
Right. And that's
continue to go on with your point now.
Yeah, am I good now? Like, am I?
Yeah. No, your lag is gone now. Go
Okay,
ahead.
good. But yeah, so what I was saying is that I think like Ted McMillan and Matthew Golden, I think, are the only two guys that you can make the argument have the upside of being a potential number one, right?
Mhm.
Like I think the rest of them, Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, whoever else, like I think those guys more fall in line of like, okay, they could get there,
Scheme
but
dependent,
they're
definitely.
safer as potential number two receivers, right?
Mhm.
Ted McMillan, I think, is the most talented, but does he like football? Like
Mhm.
that's the whole thing, right? There's video evidence of it. It's not like he said, she said. It's more like this dude flat out came out and said, "Yeah, dude, I hate watching film." Now,
Mhm.
again, I want to preface it by saying, like, I'm sure there are plenty of college and NFL players that don't like watching film. It's a part of the process, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like there are some guys that love it because they love getting, they love preparation and all that stuff. But listen, if you have a choice between, watching film and playing Fortnite, like some guys are just going to pick playing Fortnite. So,
Mhm.
I just think there's something there where like Ted McMillan's a really good prospect, but I don't know that he was a good enough prospect to get away with making a pre-draft blunder like that. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah. From what I heard, it is an older video. I don't know if it was during this draft cycle or off season from Arizona. There's another thing that I want to bring up about Ted McMillan. He's had the same quarterback since he was a freshman in high school, and that goes all the way into the Arizona days. Now, that doesn't mean every ball he's caught at Arizona was from his, buddy that followed him. In fact, he did play 1 year at Arizona without him because he was a senior when his quarterback was a junior, so he had to wait a year to get there. But he wasn't their wide receiver one at that point. Now he did have 700 yards. He was one of those highly touted recruits where he was getting on the field. But that has to be stated. You know what I mean? So there's that. And if you've ever played organized sports, you know how important team camaraderie is, and just the chemistry. So especially between quarterback and wide receiver, quarterback and tight end, stuff like that. So that can't be understated. What I will say with the film stuff is he kind of went into I don't like watching film by myself. I usually save that for a positional film watching group session in that respect. So I don't know if it's a problem where it's like really I don't care necessarily if my guys are putting the extra the extra bit of effort in unless it's my quarterback. If it's my quarterback, I want you to be doing that because it's so much more pivotal for you to understand exactly what a defense is doing versus you can kind of tell based on your positional group film sessions and meeting rooms if you're probably going to get shadowed as a wide receiver, or what kind of coverage is this defense playing more often than not. You're going to understand, okay, these are the route concepts we have thrown in for this game. This is how you beat this stuff. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. I want to point out too that if it's me making the decision on Ted McMillan, it doesn't really bother me, right?
Yeah.
Because I think even the fact that he said it and it might scare teams away, because at this level, right, like preparation's everything, and I understand all that. But the kid's got to prepare, right? Like it's like we're past the point at the level that he's playing at now, right? We're past the point of natural gifts getting you by. Everybody at this level is just as gifted as you are. You need to actually out hustle and out prepare the opposition in order for you to succeed, right? So he needs to have that drive in order for him to even get to where he is now. So I'm not for me, I'm not all that concerned about it.
Yeah.
However, I do think the reason you're seeing such a fall is because teams are it would be one thing if Ashton Genty said it, right? Like if Ashton Genty said something like that, I think people would be like, whatever. He's still,
he's RB1. Yeah,
he's going to walk into the draft and be walking into the league and get top 5 back in the league.
But I kind of wonder if that's
Ted McMillan.
Is that the same with Ted though? too, because it's not like it was last year's draft where you had Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, you had Brian Thomas Jr., you had three guys that were equally or if not better than Tet McMillan is right now. And you probably would have put Brian Thomas Jr. over Tet just based on his speed and power profile. I know that Tet is crazy hands, his catch radius is gaudy, but you probably, just based on the speed, you probably would have put Brian Thomas Jr. over him. Now, but that's the thing, though, is a lot of teams are going to have Tet is their wide receiver one. So how much do they let that affect them? Like I mentioned, I don't see him as a blue chipper, where I would probably have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Neighbors as blue chip guys last year.
Yeah.
So you've got to factor that in. But any final points on this? I think it's one of those ones, it just really based on one team.
Yeah.
If he gets past, I think the Jags, I can see him going, falling to like 9 to the Saints. The Niners and the Cowboys is really where I feel like his fall would stop.
I think that would be the floor. My expected floor for him would be the Cowboys at 12. But that's the thing, is if he falls past the Cowboys at 12, I think you could see him slip all the way to like Denver at 20. Like I think you could see a massive fall for him if
Denver would love that.
Well, I think they would too.
They'd probably be shopping Cortland Sutton after that.
I think they probably would too. But I think if you don't get Tet McMillan's name called in the first 12 picks, you're probably not going to see him go until like 20 or 21. I think there's going to be like a 9 or 10 pick drop for him if.
Yeah, because he doesn't fit what the Dolphins want to do. Colts is an interesting one, just based on Richardson and his accuracy problems. He could be a good fit with the Colts, but the Falcons, they don't need him. The Cardinals, they already drafted first-round draft capital. The Bengals definitely don't need him. Seahawks is an interesting team if he did fall there after the trade with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, obviously not there.
They have JSN and they just brought in Cooper Kupp, so they're
yep, I forgot about the Kupp news as well. Buccaneers, they already have their guys, so I absolutely can see that. The Colts is really the only other team that I would see.
I think in that range you're going to see a lot of defense. You're going to see maybe the Colts at 14. If Tyler Warren or something like that is there at 14, I think they could go in that direction. But if you're talking after the Cowboys, you're talking the Dolphins, Arizona, the Falcons, again, not in that order, but at the same time, it's that's when you're going to start seeing your Mike Greens, your Shamar Stewarts, your, that's where I think a lot of those guys are going to end up. It's a lot of defenses, offensive line. That's where you're going to see some of that action and less actual offensive playmakers. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. The next guy, man, he's not an off the field guy that is in any concerns with me. Right. But it's Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan.
Yeah.
He's a guy that hasn't run a 40-yard dash yet. Now, he had some injury stuff that was lagging throughout the entire season. A guy that, based on last year, you could have seen him this guy's definitely a first rounder. If he plays well enough this year, he's probably a top 5 pick. And early on in the process, he was the clear cornerback one, as long as you weren't factoring Travis Hunter. Now it seems like this guy could go way down the board. I'm talking maybe even dropping out of the first entirely. The speed concerns is there. I don't think he's a great man match corner. I think he plays well within the zone coverages and that snap, click and close type of stuff where he can read the quarterback and really just ball hunt. I think that he has some Trayvon Diggs to him, man, where he can get beat on the double moves. He had some problems with that last year, and specifically, but it carried over this year. Not the speediest guy. I believe he even played wide receiver at one point, so he has that with Trayvon Diggs as well, the shared similarity. So he's a guy that's, and remember, Trayvon Diggs' draft class, he had some first round buzz as well, not clearly as much as Will Johnson, but then he eventually fell all the way to pick 60 with the Cowboys. So there could be some shades of that for Will Johnson. Now, I'm not worried that he's just going to be a complete bust or anything like that, but the speed does worry me. There's people that say that he's could be running like a 4.7. Now that's with the injury stuff, but
Yeah.
if that's the fact, man, that is a slow corner on the boundary. I would let somebody else take him.
I think if the speed is that much of a concern, then absolutely he falls. But I don't. I'm a big Will Johnson guy. Like Will Johnson's one of my favorite players in the whole draft. I really think he's your comparison to him of Trayvon Diggs, I think, is pretty much spot on. Just because, he does have a tendency to get beat off the break and everything. I get all that, but his ball skills are incredible. I love his combination of not even just speed, but size, athleticism,
physicalness,
actual vertical. I just feel Will Johnson's a really complete corner. I think Will Johnson's a better prospect than Jahdae Barron, and I know that that's a little bit of a hotter take nowadays than it is.
That's hot for me.
than how it was a couple. Well, I know you're a Barron guy, but outside of Travis Hunter, I think Will Johnson's the best corner in the draft. Now I understand all the concerns and stuff, but I think the reality is that as far as his speed and the fear that comes with that, I don't know that he's a 4.7 40 running guy. I would expect Will Johnson to be more in the low 4.4s. I think that's more what you're what you would see from somebody like him.
From what I've been hearing, I don't even think he runs a high or low 4.5s. From what I'm hearing,
I don't know. I don't know that I.
Now that's when it comes to the teams having the GPS numbers, and there's a difference between being twitchy, being able to get up to speed quickly, and then being fast.
Right.
So I don't think that he has problems with the twitchiness. I don't think that he accelerates slow. I just don't think he has top end speed. That's my thing. So he's gonna get, if he does get bit on those double moves, those are touchdown balls. You cannot have big plays in the NFL and survive outside on the boundary, and that's where it gets me afraid, because he's not a clean prospect like a Derek Stingley Jr. or Pat Surtain, where they can match one-on-one outside on the boundary, man-to-man, no safety help, and you don't worry about them. I worry about him on the boundary like that. Now, if he's dropping back in those...
I think you and I disagree on this. I just think I think Will Johnson's a better, at least from what I've seen from him at his career at Michigan, right? I just feel like he's a much more complete corner than a lot of people just give him credit for, right?
Okay.
I genuinely think he's a pretty complete corner. Now, again, I understand all of the concerns as far as it is kind of weird that we haven't seen him really physically test, right? That's weird, right? Because at this point in the process, you're expecting to have every measurable possible on guys, right? You're expecting that.
And that's what I think that his team, agent wise and stuff like that, is sending out these, hey, this is what he would have ran without the injury kind of a thing, or this is what would happen in this aspect. And for a lot of teams, that's cool. If you're a super, super clean guy like a Marvin Harrison Jr., he didn't have to run. We already know what he is. He's going to be a really good pro to a possible all-pro elite guy. With Will Johnson, I don't get that same, oh, he's this clean. You know what I mean? He's not a Pat Surtain to me. And
I think that that's 100% fair. He's not he's not as good as Pat Surtain was, right? But I think my general thinking on that is that if we were really concerned this heavily about his top line speed, we would have been able to see it on tape, right? Now, him getting beat is one thing, right? But if we genuinely thought that him getting beat was really due to him just really not having the same foot speed as somebody like Jahdae Barron, somebody like Travis Hunter, some of these other top corners, then we'd be talking about him as a second or third round prospect. But we're not. I still think that the talk with him is, mid to late, and I wouldn't even say late, probably more middle first round with him. So That's that I.
So
when I
where is his bottom? That's where he. There's no way he goes under this.
I would say if he gets past the Vikings at 24, I'd be shocked.
Shocked. You willing to have a wager here, Mike? Live right here. We'll just do a strict $10 beer fund right here. I think he's gonna go past 24.
You really think he's going to drop that far?
I think so, man. I really do. Now, this is the thing is, how many first round corners are there? And like we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, how many legitimate elite guys are in this draft? You know what I mean? So because the draft is so diluted, he absolutely could. Like, would it shock me if he went 11 to the Niners? No, that wouldn't shock me. But I feel like that speed concern is absolutely there, and he has to go to the right system. Where if it's with the Commanders or somebody like that, where they like these bigger guys, you know, with the Dan Quinn, the lengthy guys, the speed isn't always the top thing with them, and especially it's more of the click and close. Can you make plays on the ball? And he absolutely can do that. That's where I kind of see him as his floor as like a Commanders. They'd just be like, oh man, he too good a value. But man, I just don't see him going super duper high in this draft, and it would not shock me if he passed pick 25 or so.
Well, that's the thing is like you bring up a good point of just like how many real elite corners are there. I mean, like Travis Hunter, I think we're assuming is, you know, pretty elite as far as that's concerned. Jahdae Barron is a top of the draft corner,
and then you've got really Amos.
You're rolling with Trey Amos. You're rolling with, you know, Siobhan Ravel. You're rolling with Benjamin.
But Ravel seems like he's really picking up some steam now.
I'm sure, and Siobhan Ravel could go round one. He absolutely could go round one. But I like maybe it's just because again, like I'm such a Will Johnson guy. Like maybe it's like I would have such a hard time if I'm making decisions in an NFL front office.
Yeah.
I have the choice between Will Johnson and like Maxwell Hairston. I'm taking Will Johnson. Like,
well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but like I think Will Johnson is still in that top tier of corners, right? Like Travis.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw some names at you. You tell me. Would you pick this guy over? And they're not gonna be corners. So, Egmeka Ibuke.
Will Johnson over Ibuka, yeah.
Really? Okay. Let's say. I mean,
again,
let's talk.
It depends
in a vacuum.
But yes, yeah, right.
Mike Green.
Oh, now EJ's.
Oh, you're lagging out on me, Mike. Come on, this is pivotal. I'm absolutely going Mike Green in that respect. I don't know if you can hear me, Mike. Yeah, Mike Green. Another one that I think that would be an interesting pick would be like a Walter Nolan. Mike, your internet. It's lagging out on me, buddy. Let's give him a second, see if he's here. Guys, if you guys are watching the video and you have a polarizing player or somebody that you would like us to discuss as well, go ahead and drop it in the comments, and maybe we get to it, maybe we don't. But we've got some fun stuff past this that we'll talk about as well. It seems like Mike just jumped off. It's gonna relog back on. But yeah, I'm probably taking Mike Green over him. I'm taking Igbuka over him. I'm probably taking Walter Nolan, man. I really like Nolan. And he's a guy that has some character concerns as well, off the field stuff. It's one of those things you've got to do your due diligence, and stumbling over my words here. But these teams absolutely do. So there's probably going to be some surprising names that are falling after this draft, or after the first round. There's going to be those names that pop into the first round that you were like, whoa, like Ravel, we just mentioned, the cornerback out of Eastern Carolina. He's a guy absolutely can go in the first round. It would not surprise me one bit if he did. And then there's those guys like Will Johnson. If he fell out, it wouldn't surprise me. So, there's just a bunch of names like that. Another name that I kind of had pinned to talk about of a name that is interesting is Harold Fannin Jr. The tight end out of Bowling Green. He's a guy that he's so strange because he gets open and he catches everything, and he's getting like 1,500 plus yards at Bowling Green, and even when he goes up against premier competition, nobody's able to stop him. He's still going for 100 plus yards each game, but he's not a crisp route runner. He doesn't look like a crazy athlete at the position. He's not like the blocking is come and go extremely with him. So he's one of those guys, like, where do you fit him in? Because he's not that true, just line him up and he's going to beat whatever linebacker or whatever safety is trying to cover them. Because he doesn't have quite that athleticism nor route running savvy to be quite that effective at the next level, but he just finds ways to get open. He's just so incredibly good at catching balls with a wide radius. He looks so smooth catching balls and transitioning into yards after the catch as well. So he's a guy I definitely wanted to talk about. Trying to think here. Another one, Luther Burden. I know that I follow Cowboys stuff a lot. So following a lot of what the Cowboys do with their draft show and some of the people over at DLLS, they were talking about Burden got kind of pinned from some scouts about, not being a leader in his positional groups and not being the first in the lines for different drills and not being the first guy to raise his hand when it comes to those meeting rooms and whatnot. He's very laid back, reserved, and because of that there's some negatives associated with that. And so Burden is a guy that you were hearing hype about him being the second wide receiver to go in this draft, and now it seems like he could be wide receiver 6 to go in this draft. It wouldn't be surprising. He could fall out of the first round entirely and be a mid second round pick. So really, really interesting with so many different names, so many different polarizing players and options for these teams. And actually, whenever Mike gets back in here, we're going to be going over these different draft theories and different draft scenarios of, if Shedeur Sanders doesn't go 2 or 3, where does he go? Is a team like the Steelers trading up? They're a playoff team. They're consistently a playoff team under Mike Tomlin, but how does Mike Tomlin marry, we're really good, we're a playoff team, and we consistently get there, but we are not good enough to compete with these Super Bowl contending teams? How does he figure out a way to either trade up and get the guy that he has a plan for and can foresee a future with, and leveraging some future assets to get him, or understanding the only other way we're going to be bad enough to get a premier quarterback is to tank, and that's not in Mike Tomlin's blood. So very, very interesting with the Steelers. The Saints at number 9, they have a potential of possibly drafting the Shedeur Sanders. I know that Derek Carr's contract, it looked like, got restructured or something along those lines, but that they're not going to be married to Derek Carr for the foreseeable future if it means drafting a potential franchise quarterback. The Bears are already secured. The 49ers are really interesting. What Shanahan wants to do there is have an accurate on-time passer, and I think that that's what Shedeur Sanders is. I know they have Brock Purdy. I know that Lynch has said that they're fully committed to him, but it's interesting having that type of a player fall where you didn't expect that player to be there, but he falls into your lap and you feel like, whoa, is this potentially too good to pass up? The Cowboys are locked in with Dak Prescott, in my opinion. The Dolphins, this is a guy that I comped Shedeur Sanders to was Tua. So seeing Tua as a potential comp, do the Dolphins move on from Tua and just roll with Shedeur Sanders, a guy that has a little bit more mobility, but has that toughness inside the pocket and can make those touch throws and the accuracy throws that is much needed in that offense. The Raiders were heavily tied to Shedeur Sanders early on in the draft process, but then they traded for Geno Smith. Do they see Geno as their actual future of their team if Shedeur did fall? Obviously, the Patriots are out of question. The Jags are probably out of question. The Jets, I know that the Jets would be intriguing. Obviously, moving on from Aaron Rodgers and that whole debacle, who knows what that entails? But do they want to get a succession plan there? Man, I'm just rambling right now because Mike just pieced out on me. No, like I mentioned, if you guys are in the watching the video, you're on X side, come to the YouTube side, the Gryd Network. That's GRYD Network, or you can come to my channel. I'm also dual streaming it to my channel right now just to get some more people in here. But leave some comments for me. I'd love to chop it up with people watching. But yeah, Shedeur Sanders, very, very polarizing in his own right. Just being the son of Deion Sanders, there comes some things with that, and it's you've got to. And here we go. Mike is back finally. Mike, I've been talking my head off for the last 5 minutes.
I've been listening while I've been trying to get my computer to back. I just lost internet in my entire office, which is
goodness
bizarre. Punching, kicking, and screaming at my computer. It finally worked.
We are 40 minutes in. I don't know how long you wanted to go. I did mention Harold Fanning Jr. as a guy that's kind of polarizing. What really is he? He's not a great athlete. He's not a crisp route runner, but he just makes it look smooth. He's a dominant receiving option and threat, but he's not really that guy that you look at as a TJ Hawkinson or a Sam Laporta. He's just one of those guys that knows how to get open somehow, despite his route running deficiencies, despite his athletic deficiencies. He's not a bad athlete by any means, but he's just okay, and he's not a good blocker. So really, where do you see him going? He had some high, I won't say first round buzz, but like early second round buzz. It seems like third round is kind of where he's sinking into. Yeah. He's a guy that I mentioned. If you have anything on him, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's more like late second, early third. At least that's what I've been seeing and hearing, and that's what makes sense to me. You're right. He's a truly terrible blocker. He's a purely receiving tight end, and that's totally fine. I mean, but those are the kind of guys that where you see, kind of in the middle or late day two. I think that's kind of what you're looking at with him.
Yeah, and he is a very young tight end as far as his age and his positional age. He hasn't always played tight end. In fact, he was recruited out as being like a safety before. I believe it was a safety. And it goes to Bowling Green where they use a lot of two tight end sets, and that's where they really made him into what he is now. So he's young at the position, young as a player, so he has room to grow. Another guy that I kind of talked about as being one of those guys that were polarizing is, of course, Shedeur Sanders, and that will kind of, after this discussion, will lead us into our draft theory stuff and what all these different scenarios lead into. But obviously, Deion Sanders' son, he is a guy that he's been pinned as not having a lot of zip on his balls, doesn't have quite that arm strength, but he's very accurate and he shows great toughness in the pocket. Needs to speed up his mental clock, but he's a guy that I believe is like a Tua-esque player, where he's on time, he's precise, and he's going to show some toughness. Now, of course, Tua gets knocked out, but Tua has some toughness to him as well. That's kind of my comp for him. I've seen some better ones, or not better ones, I won't say, but like better player comps, I guess, for him. If you were Shedeur Sanders, you would rather this guy over than Tua, which is like Geno Smith. I'm not completely sure about Geno Smith's comp, but is there anybody that you comp him to, and where do you think that he is gonna land? Where do you think? Just
Yeah,
go ahead.
I first of all, I don't love the Geno Smith comp only because I think Geno Smith's got a better arm than
Hmm.
Shedeur does. But
And he has zip to his throws, in my
right,
opinion.
Geno coming out of college had a cannon. So like,
Hmm.
let's not forget what Geno was when he was younger. But like, I think the Tua comp is very, very good. I think a lot of like the negative stuff that comes out about Shedeur is more of like disappointment that Deion Sanders' kid isn't faster. But
Hmm.
like that's just the kind of player he is. He's Carson Palmer. He's Derek Carr. He's Tua.
Yeah.
Like that. He's that kind of player, and there's nothing wrong with that. You need uber accurate throwers of the football, and
Hmm.
does he have Josh Allen's arm strength? No. Does he have the athleticism that somebody like Josh Allen has? No. But like,
Hmm.
who does? So like,
Yeah, there's a lot. I think a lot of people pin him as like he's just a statue back there
no, he's
because he's pass first. He's not a statue. He knows how to move, and he's decent at the 1 to 10 yard gaining ability through scrambles. He's not gonna get you a 40-yard rush in a game like Lamar would. Like that's not who he is. But I see him very similar as to like a Dak Prescott runner, where he's tough. He'll lower his shoulder in the middle of the field, but he's not fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Dak's a fairly good comparison too. I think he's a little bit more of a more accurate thrower than Dak is, as well. But I also think that like I totally get why teams at the top of the draft are not like falling in love with him. I get it,
Hmm.
right? Because he isn't a top tier quarterback prospect. I never viewed him that way. I think he's a
Can I?
good quarterback prospect. I don't think he's great. And that's
Mhm.
fair, right?
And I would say I would echo that same sentiment to Cam Ward. I do not think he's great.
No.
I do not think that he'll ever be elite. And that's just my own watching of Cam Ward, understanding who he is. Now, Cam Ward has the tools. If he goes in there and works
He's got a
and exactly, he hones it in, he absolutely can be one of those elite guys. But from what I see, he's way too much of a dice roller, a gambler, and just he trusts his arm, which is not always a bad thing, but it gets him in trouble. So I'm particularly down on this draft class. Feels very Kenny Pickett draft class, where you had Kenny Pickett at the late of round one, then you got the Malik Willises and whoever else was Desmond Ritter, whoever else was in that draft class. So yeah, I'm not in love with this QB class.
No, and I'm not either. But I think that's the sentiment that a lot of teams share also is like,
Mhm.
I think, and we'll talk about this once we actually get into it, but I think as of today, Cam Ward to Tennessee seems like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
At this point, it seems
Oh, sorry, buddy.
for a second I thought I lagged out again. But I think Shedeur is where Shedeur goes is one of the most interesting stories of the draft, without a doubt. Like I really am not like I have a feeling it's not Cleveland. I think the Giants are a possibility, but the fact that they signed Wilson and Jameis Winston kind of lead me to believe that they're not going to bring in Shedeur to be third string. Like I don't know, man. Like it really depends. Does he fall to the Jets? Like, do the Jets do it? Do the Saints do it? Like, is he going to fall all the way to Pittsburgh? Like I don't know.
I want us to do a realistic what we would do mock draft.
Yeah.
And so where this comes into, I think we're both in agreement that Cam Ward is going to be the number one pick. Yeah. So we can lock that one in. The draft really starts at 2. And let me find Cam Ward. They have him at 20. I don't even have a first round grade on Cam Ward. So Cam Ward goes number 1. The real draft starts at number 2. Does the Browns pull the trigger, rip the Band-Aid off with the Deshaun Watson thing? Now I want to say that they signed Kenny Pickett, didn't they?
Did they sign Kenny Pickett? They might have. No, they didn't sign Kenny Pickett, did they?
I don't know. Let me search this up.
They did sign Kenny Pickett.
That's funny.
He's
So maybe they're like, hey, Shedeur Sanders is Kenny Pickett. We got Kenny Pickett at home. But still, do they rip the Band-Aid off? They traded for him. So Jeff is saying, yeah, they traded for Kenny Pickett. Interesting, because obviously Deshaun Watson's coming off the injury. Now, here's my idea of this thing. Reading the tea leaves, the Giants did not only just sign Jameis Winston, they also signed Russell Wilson.
Right.
With that tells me that their pro personnel guys are getting word that the Browns are going quarterback at 2. Another tea leaf that I'm reading is Myles Garrett said, I want out of the Browns. I mean, I want traded, right? And then the Browns told him something where he was willing to come back to the negotiation table and get a deal done. I think that something was, we're going to get a quarterback. We're done with this Deshaun Watson thing. We want to win. So I think that you're going to see quarterbacks 1-2. I'm interested to see what you think and what should be done. Now, do I think that the quarterback should go 1-2? Absolutely not. But I think that's what's going to happen.
So that makes sense. I do think that the Browns have the most important pick in the draft at 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they do, I think, triggers everything else, right?
Yeah.
So the Browns, the sense that I'm getting, okay, is that the Browns are not going to go quarterback at 2. But that doesn't mean they won't, because, like I said, everything that you're saying makes sense, right?
And they could have told.
Was also that when the Giants signed Russell Wilson, that meant that they were going to miss on Shedeur Sanders at 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought originally. But everything that I'm hearing now is that Cleveland, that the most likely scenario for the Browns at 2 is that they take Travis Hunter. That's what I keep hearing, is that they take Travis. Now, again, it makes sense for me to be like, okay, they rid themselves of the Deshaun Watson debacle and just they take Shedeur and move on with him. That makes sense to me. It also makes sense to me that Abdul Carter, who fits them a little bit more from a roster perspective today than Travis Hunter does.
That's what Jeff is saying right now.
Could be the guy with the Browns at number 2. That makes sense. But everything that I'm hearing now is that it's Travis Hunter. But we're 2 weeks away, so there's a lot of time.
No, and I was a caveat right here. I think that the Browns are going to go 1-2 based on what I personally think. Just and kind of what I would do, honestly. I wouldn't take Cam Ward that high with the first overall pick, but if I'm the Browns and that team has had so little success, at least the Titans were making the playoffs, a couple years ago. And I know the Baker Mayfield thing, they shouldn't have let him go. But the Browns have had so little success with quarterbacks. It's almost like you've got to just keep on shooting, take your shots, because at this point you're getting really, really damn good players in your organization, but they have nothing that they can ever show for it except for Pro Bowls and All Pros and stuff like that.
Here's the thing too, is that like if they don't feel like they're in a position where they can be like, okay, like if they just look at Shedeur Sanders and are just like, we're not really impressed with the kid, we have a 2nd round grade on him, then like, they're not. I don't think they're going to take him just because.
Yeah.
Right?
In our draft theory scenario, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, we're not taking Shedeur Sanders, even if I personally think that, because I want to see where his eventual spot is going to fall.
Yeah, I still like.
I think it's Hunter or Carter. Which one are we going to go? Really?
Everything that I'm here, but I feel like the reports have progressed. Right? It went from like, okay, they're going to take a quarterback to they really like Abdul Carter to now what they're saying is Travis Hunter seems to be most likely. So everything that I've been doing. And again, if the Browns take Travis Hunter, it really screws the rest of the draft, because I think the Giants want Travis Hunter. I think the Patriots want Travis Hunter. I think the Jags want Travis Hunter. I think the Raiders want Travis Hunter. So, like,
Mhm.
and not saying that he would fall all the way to 6, but I think all of those teams are going to have Travis Hunter at the top of their board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what, like,
I think the Carter thing
so
with his ankle getting flagged takes him out of consideration in top 2, in my opinion. Just because, like, I won't say consideration, because he's absolutely going to be considered, but I just don't see him going top 2 because of that. No. Then you fall, and let's just take Hunter here at 2. Do we agree on that?
yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's take Hunter at 2. Now we get in the conversation of, you took Kayvon Thibodeau as the Giants. You've taken, or you traded for Brian Burns. You also have some other edges there as well. Do you want to take another edge?
See,
probably not.
And that's what I was saying before, is that if the Browns take Travis Hunter, the next best player on the board is Abdul Carter. The Giants don't need edge rushers.
Mm-hmm.
So that could open them up to potentially trading back if they don't love Shadur Sanders. But I've also heard that they like Shadur Sanders. So, like...
But if we're reading the tea leaves...
Yeah.
They also have Russ. They also have Jameis Winston.
Right.
I personally don't think that Jameis Winston wants to be a QB3. I think that he wants to be a starter. And all the memes and everything like that. First of all, get Jameis Winston on the quarterback show on Netflix, please. We all need that. Secondly, or I think it's on Netflix at least. Secondly, I just like seeing Jameis Winston, the volatility of the fantasy person inside of me. Like, oh, should I try to start Jameis Winston here? He could be good, you know what I mean? Which is so interesting. Like, the Browns should have just re-signed Jameis Winston, in my opinion. But they couldn't do that because they benched him late in the season. But whatever. The Giants... It's really tackle or Shadur here, in my opinion, or corner if they really, really just love Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, I don't know. 3 seems high for Jahdae Barron.
I think so too.
But that's what I'm talking about. It's like the Giants are now in a position where, okay, like Shadur Sanders... I think the Giants, my personal opinion, I think the Giants would be okay with taking Shadur Sanders. I do. But I also think that, like, Travis Hunter going 2 is their worst case scenario. It's their worst, because Abdul Carter makes no sense. Mason Graham makes no sense for them, right? So, like,
let's for this pick, just based on like the draft theory and stuff like that, and what we're trying to do. Let's say the Giants and the Browns pass on Shadur Sanders, but with the caveat of we have to have another quarterback going in the first round later on in the draft. 3 quarterbacks in this draft go first round, whether it's Milroe, Howard, or Leonard, or Dart. I mean, I don't think Leonard's going to go first round, but Dart has picked up some steam. I really don't feel like Howard, but based on the national championship, could be. And then Milroe's incredibly enticing just based on his profile and what he is. So one of those 3 quarterbacks will go. But we're going to pass on quarterback with the Giants just for a thought process and the theory of what happens if these 2 teams pass.
Who are the Giants? Who are the Giants starting tackles today? Like, on their depth chart, if the season started today,
Andrew Thomas is one of them.
The left tackle, right? Mm-hmm. Their right tackle is Jermaine Illuminor. So
okay. He played for them last year. He wasn't horrible, wasn't good. So he's a middling of the pack tackle.
They've given up on Evan Neal, right?
Yeah, so, they shifted him into guard.
Right, and he's not starting at guard. So
okay.
So, okay, I mean, do they feel comfortable with taking, like, Armand Membo? Or
that's what I was about to say. I think Membo is the guy that they would reach on based on the size profile. And he's not going to have the questions with the short arms. He's not going to be with dealing with the injury stuff that Josh Simmons has.
Right.
He just seems like the cleanest guy. And he's a right tackle anyways. So he'll fit because Andrew Thomas plays the left side. So he'll fit into that right tackle position already.
Okay. So you want to do that?
So,
You wanna do
yeah,
Membo
I said Membo at 3, which seems high. But like I said, there's not a lot of blue chip guys. There's not a lot of separation between these players in this draft.
I've also heard, though, that Armand Membo is going to be one of those guys this year that's going to go higher than everybody thinks.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
They will look at him. Most teams will look at Armand Membo as the top tackle in the draft. Right.
As the cleanest one, because he meets the size thresholds.
Right.
He's an athletic guy. He has that. Now he could be meaner, but he has just enough mean to him, and he has the versatility of playing right or left. Now I know he's mostly played right, but he seems like he has that versatility.
Right. And
number 4
is going to play guard. So all right.
Number 4, the Patriots. They take Abdul Carter?
I think so. I think if Abdul Carter's there for them at 4, I think they take him. I know that there's a lot of noise with the Patriots as far as I heard they really do like both tackles. They like Membo, they like Will Campbell a lot. But I think from what I've heard is that their top 2 choices, if one of them is available, is going to be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. If one of them are there, they're going to take him. So I would bet that if Carter is there and Hunter is not, they'll take Abdul Carter.
Yeah, you also got to factor in new head coach Mike Vrabel, defensive guy. Right. He's going to be looking at how can I make our quarterback's job the easiest on him. Now, of course, taking a weapon would make that easier, but having a stout defense where you only ask your quarterback to put up 17, 20 points a game to win a game, that seems like the route that Mike Vrabel would go down more so than building a high-powered offense.
Right. Yep. So
Abdul Carter to the Patriots. 4 or 5. The Jags, I kind of always dog-ear them for a Mason Graham pickup. Just they have so little help interiorly on the defensive line. Just seems like such a home run pick for them. And he's that clear number 1 defensive tackle in this class, whereas I don't know that Tet is necessarily that clear wide receiver 1 anymore.
I think Mason Graham is the pick that makes the most sense. I do think that, and again, this is what I've heard, they're also very interested in going tackle. And I've also heard that the tackle they like is Kelvin Banks. That's what I've heard. So again, now I like Kelvin Banks. I think Kelvin Banks is probably a mid-first round pick, but
I would
top 5,
And I agree. I have Banks as a guard in for my stack.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure out, like, you invested in a wide receiver last year, Brian Thomas Jr., and he looked probably consistently. He looked like the best rookie wide receiver last year on many accounts. Now the Giants didn't have. I think Malik Neighbors would have had a better season if he had Trevor Lawrence. Don't get me wrong, but Brian Thomas Jr. was very, very good. And on many accounts, many games, he won fantasy weeks for people. So I don't see them double dipping and going wide receiver twice in a row.
No.
This is that they didn't bring back Evan Ingram. Is this a Tyler Warren spot? Is this where it's like, whoa, Tyler Warren top 5? You know what I mean? And you saw, and I'm not trying to compare apples with apples, but you saw what Brock Bowers did for the Raiders offense last year, being a massive weapon. Even when Devontae Adams was there, he was still probably their top weapon there, which is crazy to say, but and I don't see Tyler Warren as quite the tight end that Brock Bowers was. But they need tight end help now, and they need to figure out, is Trevor Lawrence our guy? I think that they want to go offense if they're trying to figure that out. If they think, okay, we've got to shore up our defense to, you know, help him out and where he's not trying to put up 30 points a game, then I think it's Mason Graham. Where are we leaning, and do we want to play into the draft scenarios where it's like we're gonna pick a guy kind of out of left field right here that could go here, just to see how the trickle down effect goes?
So here's my thought process, right? Because Mason Graham is the only defensive tackle in the entire draft that I think is worth taking even remotely this high, right?
Mhm.
Like a top half of the first round. Like I wouldn't take Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant or any of those guys like in the top half of the first.
Yeah.
Mason Graham, I think, is pretty damn close to a blue chipper.
Yeah.
If Mason Graham doesn't go here, does he fall? Right? Like, does he not like because do you see the Panthers taking him? I don't know. Do you see the Saints taking him? I don't know. Like if Tyler Warren's there for the Jets,
The Jets would be
Tyler Warren. Like
yeah.
I don't know. So
I think that the Jets would probably opt for Mason Graham if he dropped.
They might. I mean, put him right next to Quinnen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess, but that would be the spot, right? Because then what else? Like, does then Mason Graham fall to like 15? Like, so, you know, I think the pick that makes the most sense for me, again, biggest need and arguably the best prospect left on the board. I mean, I love Genty, but
yeah.
Like,
okay, let's go. Let's not get too crazy. Let's go Graham here with 5. I think this one's a foregone conclusion for me. I think Genty is so heavily linked to the Raiders and what they want to do. They hired Pete Carroll there. You know Pete Carroll loves to lean on his run game. And I think that my pro comp really for Ashton Genty was a Marshawn Lynch. Just the contact balance, the bowling ball aspect of things where he's not the fastest guy, but just so good at staying up and having that ability to have the balance. And you know, you can't arm tackle this guy. It reminds me a lot of beast mode. So I think it just makes too much sense.
Priest Holmes, I think, is another guy that you can draw that sort of comparison to. The only other name I've heard for the Raiders at this spot is Tet McMillan. But I think Genty's the pick. I think Genty is most likely not going to make it past here. And if he does get by the Raiders, I don't know that he makes it back past the Bears at 10.
Yeah, the Bears is another one that I have kind of.
So I think
right there.
I think the Raiders scoop him up right here. That's what I think.
Okay, let's go with that for the Raiders. The Jets. This is that potential where it's like, okay, Shedeur, we didn't believe that Shedeur was here. This is that first kind of spot without obviously the trades and whatnot factoring. So they're moving on from Aaron Rodgers. Who is their current starter if the season were to start today?
Justin Fields.
Are
they going to give Justin Fields a real shot? I don't know, and probably not. But I've heard, obviously, I've heard Tyler Warren. Like I heard the Jets love Tyler Warren,
and they probably wished that they would have gone Bowers last year.
I bet you they do. And I think Fashanu is going to be a good player.
Yeah, but, it's one of those things with their tackles right now. They're so old, or they didn't even pick them back up. So I really believe a tackle here is where they're probably going to lean. But how often do you want to continue to invest in this offensive line where it seems like every single draft you're throwing a pick at it and it hasn't come to fruition? You know what I mean? So maybe the route for a Jets organization is let's go into free agency or figure out how we can make a trade for a guy who's fallen out of favor elsewhere and use this asset at the number 7 pick to pick somebody that we truly think can be a difference maker. Now that could be, as crazy as it sounds, trading away their top wide receiver in a Garrett Wilson, and then in turn getting a tackle back, and then picking up a Tet McMillan. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different facets that they could go. I believe that they're going to go tackle on draft night, or if Shedeur somehow falls here, they probably would go Shedeur.
Sanders makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Will Campbell is.
Yeah.
Like I think if they're in this exact situation, I think they're going to be deciding between Tyler Warren and Will Campbell. Like I think
Okay.
those are going to be because they've done a lot of work on Tyler Warren. So
And that cannot be overstated. If they've done so that much work on them, maybe they do have that kind of feeling of, man, we missed out on Bowers, and the Jets want to get better on offense and make it easier on whatever quarterback is there. Let's go something crazy here and let's do Warren.
Okay. Tyler Warren to the Jets.
Here for the Panthers, wide receiver, edge, DB. Wide receivers they badly need, but like you just mentioned, exactly what I was going to say, they badly need edge as well, and DB as well too. I mean,
that's what I heard they want to address too. Is they want to address edge early.
Yeah.
The problem is that outside of Abdul Carter, there's no real top tier, top 10 edge rusher that you can take in this spot unless you want to gamble on James Pierce, right?
So James Pierce, I think absolutely James Pierce. Donovan, how do you say his last name again?
I always thought it was Ezeruaku, but I don't know.
Ezeruaku.
I gotta Google it.
No, that sounds pretty good. Ezeruaku. I think that he was second or third in sacks this past season, so he was up there as well. A guy that's really risen up the boards as well. But I really, from all the buzz I'm hearing, I think Shamar Stewart's going to go a lot higher than people think.
That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. I also know that Michael Williams is a player.
He's another one.
I think Michael Williams is going to go higher than people expect also. So I do think edge is the direction. I think the Panthers will take an edge rusher. It just depends on which one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think for the sake of conversation of like, let's make it realistic, but also do this draft scenario thing. I think Pierce is out of the question. I think it's between Green, Stewart, Williams, for me.
I agree.
And I think I'm going to try to do a little something crazy here. I think we're going to go with Williams. Georgia players, you know that program has those guys in strict programs. You don't have to worry about, are they missing weight room and whatnot. They have people that will follow these guys around, make sure that they're where they need to be. So you don't have to question that. And I think that they just need a guy that they can trust and rely on. Doesn't have to be a 20-sack guy, but a guy that can come in and get you a bottom line of 8 sacks. I think that's going to be Michael Williams for them, and I think it addresses a need.
The Saints could take Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
I mean,
I kind of agree on this. I think that Derek Carr, for whatever the extension or whatever it was that they got for him, I think, man, the Saints is kind of where Shedeur should fall.
I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, and he's going to have weapons there, right? He's
stays in the black and gold.
Rashid Shaheed. They just brought back Brandon Cooks,
mm-hmm.
right? They've got some weapons there.
Yeah.
So it's not a terrible little situation for him there. Now, Derek Carr is going to start. Derek Carr is going to be their starting quarterback. Shedeur Sanders will likely battle Spencer Rattler for.
But this is the same discussion that probably the Falcons had last year when they picked Penix. You know what I mean? So you have an aging veteran that has had some injury problems in the past, and you question if they're going to last the entire season. You hedge your bet on your future. If your guy has to play early, great. He can come in and he has that talent where he can absolutely win you some games, and he'll have the luxury of sitting back early in the season, figuring things out where he has the whole playbook under wraps. By the time that he gets in there, if the inevitable happens with a guy going down, he can absolutely take command of the offense.
Yep. So is that it? Shedeur?
Yeah, I think Shedeur, I think it's a no-brainer for me. I know there's other needs. I know that the wide receiver, the D-line, and whatnot there for the Saints, but if you're a Saints fan and you really think, do we have the the potential of winning the Super Bowl with Derek Carr, I think you would probably arise with the answer of no.
Yeah.
That's why I would go. I would go with Shadur Sanders.
I agree. I think that's smart. Now, again, like I think Shadur Sanders, for the caliber of player that Shadur Sanders is, I'm not against taking him at 9. Like I think if you have a first round grade on Shadur Sanders and you need a QB, taking him at 9 is not a big deal, right? And again, like the Saints have other needs, but they're also not completely in the gutter. Like they can still float a little bit. So I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. This is one of those situations where, like, you know, Shador's floor could be here. Like, because again, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but
and maybe this sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe this is the Steelers trading up from 21 to 9 to pick Shadur if he falls like that. And the Saints just acquire the picks and whatnot. But I see this as kind of his bottom spot, it feels like.
Yeah, I just don't get the feeling that he's going to go outside of the top 10. I just don't. Like, he'll go, I think what's more likely to happen is, like, you'll see, like, Jackson Dart come in at, like, the end of the first. I think that's more likely than Shadur falling out of the top 10. Like, honest to God.
I agree. Now, this one, I have a balls to the wall, kind of crazy out of left field kind of a thing I want to throw at you. And that's Omarion Hampton. I really think he's going to go a lot higher than a lot of people think. He's gotten some buzz. Now, he is a pet cat of mine. I love the guy. I think that he's absolutely worthy of a first-round grade. I have a first-round grade on him. Does he go top 10? Who knows? But I think that coming from the Lions organization, Ben Johnson understands what it means to have a dual backfield, a guy that's that bruiser, a guy that can take the top off of a defense, and the Jahmyr Gibbs. That same kind of a thing happened in that draft with Bijan Robinson. Everybody's like, oh, he's the clear-cut number 1. Jahmyr Gibbs is really, really good, really, really talented, and would always sell him short. Then the Lions take him really early in that draft, and it pans out great. Honestly, Jahmyr Gibbs has probably had the better career thus far than Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Obviously, very, very close. But
it's a lock for me that Omarion Hampton goes round 1. Like,
I think
it's gonna happen. So I don't think that that's crazy. Like, I'm a big fan of Hampton's also. I really like. This group of running backs is so special, I think. Like, it's such a deep group. It really, really is. I think the max you're going to get in the first round is 2. I think Genty and Hampton is going to go in round 1. Like, I don't think you're going to see Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins. I don't think you're going to see any of them sneaking around 1. But I think Ashton Genty is a top 5 back in the league next year. I think Omarion Hampton could be a top 10 back in the league next year. Like, I just be that good.
There's so much talk there with, like, how do we make Caleb Williams' jobs easier? And to me, Omarion Hampton is so damn good in pass pro, picking up those free blitzers, but he's also a tough runner, gets those tough yards, and gets your quarterback in the position of, instead of a 2nd and 8, it's 2nd and 4. You know what I mean? Those scenarios make a young quarterback's life so much easier. And that's why I think that Ben Johnson really loves the run game, really uses that to set up the pass game and sets on-time stuff up for the quarterback and just those easy timing routes and stuff. I don't know. I feel like this could... I think that the Raiders are going Genty, but I think that Hampton is going to go super high.
I think it could be too. The only caveat here is that, and again, this is what I've heard from the Bears, is that they're very interested in trying to keep Caleb Williams upright, right? So, like, they're going to look at Will Campbell on the board and be like, dude, we need a left tackle. Can you do it? And I know that there are a lot of teams that just look at
Yeah.
Will Campbell the same way they looked at Ryan Ramczyk, where they were just like, is this guy actually a tackle? Because this guy's got arms that are not long enough. But I don't know. Like, do they just look at it and say, we got to keep him upright? We have a running back, right? Do we want to?
To me, Caleb Williams has that ability to extend plays. So it's not that he can't move if he senses the pressure, up the middle, right? And that's what I have Campbell as a potential tackle, but probably a guard. Banks I have as strictly a guard. But when you take Hampton, that allows him to be free in the back and pick up whichever edge needs to help. And that gives that extra tick, that extra second that makes Caleb Williams so special. Yeah. And that's why I feel like, man, that's super enticing for the Bears. Yeah. I don't think a safety goes this high. No. That's their other need. So it's really D-line, and I don't think that D-line, I know Mike Green is there, but they have a really good defense. I think it comes down to a tackle. If Mimbo was on the board, I would take Mimbo. But with these questions of the tackles, I just feel like running back is the need.
Yeah, I'm not against taking Hampton. Again, if the Bears went Omarion Hampton, my first reaction would be like, they have serious balls. That's a ballsy pick. So I'm not against that. I think Omarion Hampton. And here's the thing: if the Bears take Hampton, are the Cowboys pissed? I
think they are, but they also still have Tet on the board right now. So,
right.
and that's probably about the scenario that's looking like it's going to happen, anyways, with what's happened. So I kind of want to go Hampton, but if you want to go Campbell,
take Hampton.
Okay, let's do Hampton here. Super high, it feels like, but man, I love that kid so much. He's so damn good. Really good. Now this is the one where I see Campbell is like, boom, we've got our guard, we've got a potential tackle, but if worst case happens, we shift him into guard, and he's an instant plug and play. They took Ricky Pearsall last year with the first round pick. I don't see wide receiver as an option, especially with them keeping his name's escaping me. Route runner guy, Iowa State. Didn't he play at Iowa State? What's their wide receiver?
Not for the Niners?
Yes.
Ayuk,
Brandon Ayuk. Thank you.
I was like, wait.
Yeah, his name escaped me. Brandon Ayuk, and they have Ricky Pearsall in there. They got Jennings, I believe, is still there. So I don't think they'd pick a wide receiver. Cornerback, Jahdae Barron is absolutely in play here. D-line, if Graham was still here, I probably would have given them Graham. But I feel like Campbell just seems like a no-brainer here with the tackle guard need for the Niners right now. Especially like, how long is old left tackle going to be playing? Trent Williams, you know what I mean?
Trent Williams, yeah. They can use it. Will Campbell's a great fit because you could plug him in pretty much wherever you need him, right? Like, if you want him to play guard, he can play guard. If you want him to play tackle, like, you can play him over Colton McKivitz if you really want to, you know what I mean? So like, this is not, out of the question here. I think Will Campbell is a great pick here. I mean, I've kind of wrestled with the idea of them taking a corner or a tackle. I thought that Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson would be on the board here as well for them. But I think if Will Campbell's just sitting there staring at him in the face, I think Will Campbell's probably the pick there.
Let's go Will Campbell. Let's go Tet for the Cowboys. I feel like it's a no-brainer for them.
There's been so much
just for the sake of.
Yeah. Do they now? Here's what I wanted to talk to you about as far as this. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but do the Cowboys, like, I know they love Tet McMillan. Do they take Matthew Golden over him? Because I know that's been thrown around as a possibility of like they like Tet McMillan, but they also really like Matthew Golden.
See, my thing is like the Cowboys have been on the other side of this, where the Raiders took Henry Ruggs specifically because of his speed. The Broncos took Jerry Jeudy because they thought he was the best route runner in the class. But in reality, CeeDee Lamb was the best overall wide receiver in that class based on catch radius, based on yards after the catch, based on the route running,
He was.
everything. He wasn't slow, but he wasn't fast. And the Cowboys were on the better side of those things, right?
Yes.
I don't think that the Cowboys are a team that reaches based on measurables unless it comes down to tackle thresholds for arm length and corner just speed length profiles.
Yeah.
I personally don't see that. So I think that they would just go Tet. But
I agree. I mean, my original thinking would be Ted McMillan has been their guy for as long as we can remember, right?
Yeah.
They've publicly stated that they want to address wide receiver in the first round, right?
Yeah, and you can and also you can tell what the Cowboys are doing because they always try to fill their needs before the draft.
Yes.
They signed an offensive tackle today, which is noteworthy.
Charles, right?
Yeah, exactly. Who obviously he's been out of the league for a little bit, but still noteworthy. They've addressed the running backs, which tells me running back they feel is not going to get to them at the position of 12 unless it's Hampton. They've addressed some of the offensive line or the defensive line stuff. It seems like linebacker they've addressed. So and I know they signed Paris Campbell, but he does nothing for you. It seems like a wide receiver first round. Obviously, if it were a tackle, you'd be very surprised. But in our scenario, there's just not a tackle there. So Ted McMillan is the pick for the Dolphins. I think this is kind of where you see Barron being discussed. Cornerback there, they need outside help, a guy that can shade inside as well.
I think they talk about Kelvin Banks here too.
Like, Banks, you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think eventually Kelvin Banks is going to come off the board.
And you know what? Yeah,
15-ish range.
I like that pick with being Banks. Just you got to keep Tua up.
Right. Well, and I think that's going to be part of their thought process. But again, that's the thing is like outside of Jalen Ramsey, they have no corners. Like they are really weak at corner. So Jahdae Barron is staring at him in the face, right? Will Johnson is staring at him in the face. Did they just say, let's get our pick of the litter here?
Yeah, I personally would go Barron over Will Johnson. And I think he kind of fits with the Dolphins a little bit better, anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm let's just go Barron for the sake of seems like they have him 8 spots ahead or 6 spots ahead the rankings. So we'll just keep it at that. Barron to the Dolphins. The Colts are an interesting team because this kind of seems like Tyler Warren's spot.
Right. So if it's not Tyler Warren's, because they've done a lot of work on Tyler Warren too. If the Colts can't get their hand on Tyler Warren, do they then go for Colston Loveland? Right?
Yeah. And yep. That's kind of where I was going.
I kind of think the answer is yes. Like I almost feel as if tight end is the thing they want to address first, which is kind of weird because it's not like a super premium position.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to come back in the second round and get Loveland. He's a first round guy. You've got to pick him where. Yeah, exactly. So I actually kind of like that for the Colts. Picking Loveland. Warren's already off the board to the Jets, I believe, is where we took him. So, yeah, let's just go Loveland for the sake of continuing on. This is dog-eared right now for me as an edge. Mike Green is on the board still. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is Mike Green. I've heard so much tying Mike Green to the Atlanta Falcons. I think that's – if Mike Green is there, the Falcons are going to take him. That's how I feel about it almost.
Okay, let's pick him there. Cardinals, I feel like this is where it's kind of.
I think this is an edge too. Like I kind
Banks of though. I mean, they need to address that offensive line.
Yeah. So they drafted Paris Johnson a couple of years ago.
Who hasn't worked out though?
Right. So they're rolling with Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams.
Or not Paris. I'm thinking of Zion, who hasn't for the tech. Or I think, yeah. So he's been all right though. Paris, yeah.
So they could take Banks and throw him at guard, right?
Yeah.
Like I think they like Isaiah Adams, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could take a guard. They could absolutely take a guard. I know that they just brought in Calais Campbell. They just signed Dalvin Tomlinson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just still get the feeling that they want to go edge, right? Like you're looking at Shamar Stewart and Jalen Walker and these guys, and you know, like I get the feeling that that's the direction they want to go to. That's what I've heard, but you know,
so you're going with edge, you think?
that would be my first inclination. Would be that they go edge, but
I think Shamar Stewart's going earlier than we think. So, I mean, do we want to?
he's also a good fit. I think Shamar Stewart's a good fit in there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be against that.
Okay. Remember, this is a draft scenarios based on kind of what we think will happen and has the potential to happen, but not a lot of people are mocking this stuff.
Yeah.
The Bengals, I think that if Banks is here, I kind of feel like they got to.
How are they on the offensive line? Are they so Orlando Brown's going to be their left tackle? That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Amarius Mims is going to be their right tackle. So Ted Karras at center, and then they've got some guys at guard.
Mm-hmm.
So they could take Banks and plug him in at guard and just have him be their everyday guard, and he'll be a Pro Bowl guard.
Linebacker 2, and then interior D line. Kenneth Grant wouldn't be a bad pick here either.
No.
Jahad Campbell, it seems like Jahad Campbell has had a lot of whispers around him not being as healthy as they would like. They've got some medical concerns with him being banged up and stuff like that.
I've had Jahad Campbell earmarked to the Buccaneers for a long time. Like I think the Buccaneers are truly the team that I've gotten the sense that they're interested in going linebacker early.
Okay.
So, and that doesn't mean that the Bengals have to pass on him, but I also think that this could be James Pierce. Like, I think this could be gamble edge
shot.
Right?
They didn't pick up Hendrickson, I don't think. So
they still have Hendrickson, but that situation is still up in the air.
Pending.
You know what I mean? So do they want to address the edge in case something does happen with Trey Hendrickson? And even if it doesn't, now you've got kind of two legit edge rushers.
I like it. So, let's shoot that one out. And then now it's like the Seahawks are like, damn it, because they needed an edge. I don't think there's a center worthy of the pick right here. I'm kind of thinking, okay, yeah, Jalen Walker is definitely an option.
Do they go like now? Could Kelvin Banks go here? And if it's not Kelvin Banks, would it be like Tyler Booker? Right? Because I think they would specifically look more towards the interior of the offensive line if they were going to go there. The only thing with Booker, I don't think that he matches what they want to do in the run game. Okay. He's not going to be able to pull out like they want with Seattle, right. Outside zone stuff. He's more of a mauler, you know what I mean? Right. So yep. I don't think that that's a great fit for them. So I would probably lean with Banks, a guy that has some movement skills, can get out, and get in there at guard. So let's go Banks here. Yeah, I like that pick. I kind of like what you were kind of selling me on with Jahad Campbell, Levante David. Replacement here for the Bucks, and a guy that just he's a dog, he's a leader out there. He's a guy that's, I wouldn't really necessarily call him sideline to sideline, but he understands what you want to do at the linebacker position, good at reading and just shedding those blocks and getting to the running backs on run fits, and then as a delayed blitzer, not bad at all in my opinion. Just a super solid linebacker. If not for the medical concerns, he would be one of those guys that has the potential of going top 15 even. Yeah. But yeah, I like the fit here. Yeah, I've heard, just like Mike Green to the Falcons, I've heard Jahad Campbell to the Bucks a lot. Okay. Broncos here. Now this is intriguing to me
because it seems like they want to get Bo Nix some help at wide receiver. They're willing to part ways with Cortland Sutton.
Yep.
Is this one of those guys where it's like, let's make it easy on our quarterback and get a guy that's just a route runner, can create the separation in Igbuka
Yes, I think Igbuka is an option. I think
or
Golden's an
Golden?
option.
Yeah.
I also think funny thing about the Broncos here at 20, I think this is Omari and Hampton's floor. Like I think this is the lowest he could drop. And I think they're going to be very, very interested in addressing running back almost as soon as they can. But yes, I think wide receiver is the top priority, and at this particular juncture,
Yeah.
it just depends on which one you like the most. I would say I think Golden's the best one left.
Yeah, I think Golden's going to go before Igbuka for sure. And Burden for that fact. I'm surprised Burden is still up here on the PFF big board.
Me too. I'm really surprised. But I mean, Luther Burden's a good receiver, man. Like,
He's good. Yeah, he is good, but he's one of those players that had a better 2024 or 2023 than 2024 tape. He's a guy that seems like he was, and you weren't here for this session of the show because you lagged out, but he's been pinned from some scouts as a guy that's too laid back, too Amari Cooper-esque, where he's not the front of the receiving line. He's not the first to answer the questions in the film room or the positional rooms. He seems almost too passive, and that's turned some people off to him.
Yeah.
So let's go Golden, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Golden is gonna go in this range. I think like Golden, I think could go as high as like 10, and could go as low as about here. Like this is about where I think his floor is going to be. I don't think he's going to drop to the end of the first.
I think this is almost where we pick our other quarterback, and I know the Jackson Dart stuff. I know the Jackson Dart stuff is real in here, but I feel like Tomlin is going to be like, I like Milroe. And if you are committed to Mike Tomlin and his plan for the future, he's a guy that gets you in the playoffs every single year. It just is like, okay, we're going to trust you. I really think Milroe could be the guy.
Yeah, it's such an interesting little situation because I really don't think Shadur Sanders is making it here. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think Jackson Dart is the most realistic third quarterback that could go. But I do agree. I think Jalen Milroe is an interesting player that that would be the shock the world pick is if the Steelers took somebody like Jalen Milroe. So that would
and it just feel like I get the whole, oh my goodness, this is too high for this player. I get that, but it is not it's not overstated enough where it's like the fifth year option is so much in the back of GM's minds when it comes to quarterbacks. That extra year of low salary cost that you can get a guy that's a potential to have your team as a contender just based on a single position being quarterback is so important. So I think it's Dart or Milroe, whichever one you want to go here, we'll go.
I kind of, because here's the thing. If I'm the Steelers, I'm not taking a quarterback. I'm just not.
I get you.
But because listen, I'm looking at like Will Johnson, and I'm looking at like Kenneth Grant, and I'm like, okay, like I've just got like potential Pro Bowlers here. But if I'm taking a quarterback, because it's the Steelers, I really want to take Milroe. Like I think Milroe.
I like it.
I've also heard that. I've heard they like him too.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
So
let's go Milroe.
We are just
the Johnson experiment
fun on this show.
Oh yeah, the Johnson experiment at wide receiver for the Chargers has hurt them. However, they picked Ladd McConkey last year. Do they go wide receiver again? They've got Luther Burden. They've got Igbuka.
Listen,
who knows?
They need weapons. They certainly do. I think they're hoping that like Colston Loveland falls into their lap.
That's what I was going to say. Both the worthy tight ends have already been picked.
They're not going to take somebody like Elijah Arroyo or Harold Fannin or anything like that this early. That's a little ridiculous. I don't think that they will take a receiver in round 1. I think they'll eventually take a receiver. I don't think it'll be in round 1. I think this will more than likely be defense.
Yep.
I mean, I think Jalen Walker is somebody that you could look at here, as you can use him in kind of in a lot of ways. Right? Because they need edge rushers. They also need middle of the field linebackers. So they have that kind of versatility with him, however they want to use him. I actually, the more I'm talking about it, the more I think that that's actually a really good fit. Is Jalen Walker to the Chargers. I mean, how do you feel about that? I know there's not a lot coming out with them. I know they want weapons. But
Walker is one of those guys you absolutely could have talked about. And Jeff, sorry, I've been ignoring you over here, buddy. Did they re-sign Dobbins, which is a question. No. I don't think they did. And then they may need a running back. See, I think that this is a terrible spot for the Chargers because Golden, Tet have both been picked. Colston and Warren have both been picked. And so you're staring at either Azaruku or Jalen Walker, a guy that has been, productive at BC, but is a guy that's not going to wow you with the physical traits. Now, not bad at that respect, but just a guy that's he's a football player. He's not a freak, or Jalen Walker, who's an undersized guy, but has that freakiness to him. He has a good first step. He has that bend around the edge, but he's not what you would envision as a full-time edge. So you're probably playing him more in that 3-4, defensive scheme. And I don't necessarily know that he would get on the field super early as long as they still have Khalil Mack there. Do they?
They do have Khalil Mack, but they don't have Joey Bosa. So
I thought Bosa came back.
Bosa is with the Bills. Now,
Joey
Bosa ended up in Buffalo. So,
see the latest reports I saw on that was they released him and then they're going to re-sign him with a new contract, but I guess that didn't happen. So very interesting.
So they're right now looking at on the edge they do have Khalil Mack, and then they're rolling with Tuli Tuipulotu out there on the other end, who I think is, I mean, in my opinion, I think he's just more of a rotational edge rusher than anything else. But they're also in need of somebody that can play sort of that middle linebacker position next to Denzel Perryman. So, again, like I'm not saying they have to take somebody like Jalen Walker, but I do think that makes
We're going to go with it. Just because I feel like Walker's going to go earlier than his ranking right here. And I that's a need for them, and it just makes sense. Especially because they lost what was his name? Kenneth.
Yeah, well, they've been without.
He went to the Cowboy
for a couple of years, but yes.
But he kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit.
Right. Yep.
Wide receiver, edge, or cornerback for the Packers here. I think that this is a potential Will Johnson spot. This is a potential Egbuka spot.
The only reason I'll say that I don't think they're taking a wide receiver in the first round is because the Packers never
do. They never do.
So I don't know that I'm confident in them taking a receiver in round 1. If they're going to take an edge rusher, are they going to reach on somebody like Donovan Ezeruaku or somebody like Nick Scorton instead of going with somebody like Will Johnson, right? Like I think Will Johnson is like, if it were me making the decisions, I think Will Johnson's the pick here.
I like that. For the sake, since we're running a little bit long, let's keep it moving. Will Johnson here, running back, defensive interior. I think this is a no-brainer. Kenneth Grant for the Vikings. Interested, kind of what you think.
Kenneth Grant, I think, I absolutely think that interior D-line is interesting here. I also think that the Vikings could be where we see our first safety.
Malachi.
Malachi Starks, Nick Emenworry. I think one of those guys could end up going here as well.
Yeah.
because the Vikings desperately need secondary help too. So I think
Yeah, I like the Malachi pick. I mean, he's my safety one. I think that he's a guy that's a difference maker out there. He's a guy you don't have to worry about being that single high guy either.
Right.
Sure tackler. He's a guy that can play some nickel as well. Yeah, I kind of like that pick as well. And I'm not super high on Grant. In fact, I don't even have a first round grade on him. So
Yeah.
I do with Starks. So let's go Starks here for the sake of that.
This
Texans.
has to be the line, right? For the Texans. They just
Yeah.
got Jeremy Tunsil. Like, this just feels like it's got to be
Simmons or Zabel.
Yeah, right. I mean, Zabel, I think, is more of a guard. Simmons, I would have pegged as more of a tackle.
I think Simmons is the smart money here.
I think Simmons is. I think I would take Simmons too. I think he's the guy.
Simmons to the Texans. The Rams. This is kind of where, for me, Revel has real potential of going to the Rams. He has that first round buzz coming up. The other three guys have gone earlier, I guess, should I say. We had Campbell dropping a little bit, but he's a guy that's had that buzz coming up, and it looks like PFF has him ranked at 26 anyways now. Only really the 1 year starter. He had the injury concerns, but he has all the size. He can run with anybody. He shadows really well. He has the interception production.
Yep.
He's just a guy that's like, if not for the injury concerns, I think that he's absolutely pinned as a first rounder, no doubt. And if he had that more consecutive years of starting, I think that he could be as high as, a top 15 pick.
Yeah, I think you're going to see. I think corner is absolutely the need. I think you're going to see something along the line of a Siobhan Revell, Maxwell Hairston. I think you could see Benjamin Morrison here. I think you could have a group of corners of that next tier after Jahdae Barron, after Will Johnson. That next tier of corners, I think you could see coming off the board right here. So
let's go Revell.
Siobhan Revell to the Rams. I like that.
Baltimore always picks the best player on the board when they're there. I don't think they're going wide receiver, but edge is a need for them, and they have no problem taking a guy that other teams are kind of a little bit weary on, but it's just a super good player. And as a Ruku, it seems like he would be a Baltimore kind of a player. They love picking those crazy last names anyways there in Baltimore. So
they do. They took Adafe Owe however long ago, right?
Owe, and then they Justin Matabike, and then exactly. So all of those crazy names. So he'd fit right in with them.
Yeah, I'm not against that pick. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think they could go another area. I think they could
Zabel
also is right. Somebody like Gray Zabel, somebody like Tyler Booker, like one of these interior offensive linemen.
Oh, Tyler Booker is. I like you bringing him up because I do think he's a first round guy, and they only have him as 47. That's crazy. I think he's a first round guy.
I agree. I think he's.
I actually kind of want to go Booker.
So take Booker. Let's take Booker.
Okay. Let's take Booker. And the Lions could have even taken Booker. I mean, really, they need guard help as well. Glasgow, how long is he really going to be out there? I don't even think that they're tied to him after this season. So they need to re-up on their offensive line as well. This could be a Zabel here. I think they're good on the tackles. So
defensive line, especially on the interior defensive line, I think is an area that the Lions could look at as well. They're going to be looking at guys like Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan.
And Grant seems like a Lion too, man.
He does kind of seem like a Lion. That is true.
And then cornerback. See, I personally don't think we see more than the 4 corners going in the first round, so I probably wouldn't give them a corner.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Or I guess that says linebacker. I was looking at Washington, what it says right here. Where's linebacker? I don't even think that there's a linebacker that's good enough to go here. Thinking of Carson, yeah. Knight, I guess, but he's more of that old school kind of a linebacker. I don't know. They already
Yeah,
have Jack
I don't know
Campbell.
that Demetrius Knight makes it into the first.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm leaning Grant or Nolan here
yeah,
for
I think
the Lions.
one of those DTs I think is going to be their direction.
Let's go with Grant just based on I feel like both of those two Michigan guys are going to go first round.
Yep, that makes
Um,
sense.
Washington here, guard, edge, corner. Like I said, I don't think a corner is going to go. Like the if the over under was set at 4.5, I would take the under on corners going in the first. Um, and let's go.
Don't I wouldn't rule out wide receiver here either. Like if they could be looking at somebody like a Emeka Egbuka and be
Yeah.
like, okay, like let's pair him with like let's get one of these like in between guys with Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel over there and
Hmm.
just get another pure route runner. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah. I don't dislike that.
Edge is a big need.
Yeah, I feel like we go edge here. I feel like that would be a good pick, and you know that Dan Quinn's thumbprint is on the draft a lot, and he's a defensive minded head coach.
There's also not that many edge rushers left
Yeah.
that you can take with this pick, so they might just look at this and be like we can grab a receiver in round 2, round 3, and let's take the edge rusher now so that we can stock up on both and not take
Yeah.
the,
Let's go edge right there and there.
to the Commanders.
So I guess Bosa is with the Bills now, as you mentioned. So, and then that was our kind of our first or our last edge that we feel like is gonna kind of go in this range. Let's pull these guys back. Yeah, Scorton Jackson isn't. Yeah, I personally
think
don't have
good
any of
with
those guys.
Buffalo's good with edge too. I mean, like they just brought in Bosa. Greg Rousseau was really good last year. They still got guys like AJ Epinesa, who has been a fairly solid producer for them as well. I think they've got.
They don't have wide receiver up here, but I wonder if they go wide receiver. And I know that they picked up Keon Coleman last year, but it just feels like they could have used a Cooper Cup with the Bills, and they didn't get that. And so, and I know that they have a couple young pieces there that are good. I just don't know that they have a true alpha guy that can really take a game over by himself. Luther Burden's intriguing. Okay, go ahead.
Let me throw an idea at you. What if they took Nick Emmanwori, right? What if they took another safety, right? Because they drafted Cole Bishop in round 2 last year, but
Okay.
they really rolled out Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin at safety last year, and
Yeah, that's true.
They couldn't handle plays over the top. So could they use like a ball hawking safety like Nick Emmanwori and just sort of rebuff that area?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
So I haven't even watched Nick. I've watched Watts. I actually liked Watts quite a bit. Based on what I've seen, I would go Watts here if we want to go safety. But I'll trust you, and we can go with Nick Emmanwori. Hopefully I said that right. Yeah, if you feel like he kind of popped off the page, is he more of a strong? Is he more of a free? Where is he at?
I always looked at him as more of a free safety that can just play center field.
Okay.
And he tested out of the water. Like this guy's a physical freak.
Yeah, let's do it then. So, another surprising one that's going to push another really good player down the board. For the Chiefs, I feel like they really want to revamp their offensive line. They can go tackle or guard. I feel like Zabel is the guard if you want to go guard.
Yeah.
Connor Lee is more of the straight tackle if you want to go tackle. But and he's my guy, but I have him as a mid-second round guy.
Yep. I think Gray Zabel is.
That's what I was going to say.
I think Gray Zabel is such a good player and fit in Kansas. I think Kansas City is screaming with happiness if Gray Zabel makes it to them. I do.
And then we're not going to go to the second round. Even though I've clicked it, we've been running a little bit long with the technical difficulties and whatnot. But Eagles are on the clock. You know that they love to go interior offense or defense. Is that the pick here? There's Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Both of those guys I think really highly of. You got Trey Amos who can kick in there inside, play that nickel, and then you've got some really good potential. But he can also stick on the boundary, and you can still play white boy Slim. I forgot his name
Oh,
on the outside. God, why am I forgetting his damn name? What is it? I think
Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean. Thank you. It's like you watch so many players, dude, that they all just become a blur after that draft is gone. You're on this draft. You know what I mean? So your rapid recall isn't as well.
They need,
but yeah,
big time.
Is there an edge that will go here though?
That's the thing. Is like I think they would hope for somebody like Ezeruaku to fall here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. It's like, do the Eagles, like, this is where I can kind of see, like, if there's no edge rushers around, are the Eagles the team that trade out of the first for the team that wants to take Jackson Dart or something like that? Now, for the sake of this, we took Milroe with the Steelers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But would
absolutely
the
could be a potential
trading back so that they could take somebody like Nick Scorton, somebody like Jack Sawyer, right? Like something like that a little bit more comfortably in the second. JT Tuimoloau, like, you know what I mean? Like, take one of those players instead.
Well, I accidentally pressed Alec Aomanor, apparently for that. I don't think that's going to be the pick. I actually was going to say Luther Burden's intriguing because he's kind of AJ Brown-esque with just the physical nature in his game. He has that yards after the catch ability. Obviously, not quite as good in tracking the ball in the air as AJ Brown, and I think AJ Brown's a much better just overall route runner than Burden is right now. But interesting if they can't pay everybody, and I personally think that you've got to side with Devontae Smith over Brown just based on age. When it comes down to it, and injury history as well. So could they elect to go with a wide receiver, knowing that it's good value, whether they pick Igbuka or Burden? And Igbuka could be a slot demon if that's the case as well there with the Eagles.
It wouldn't surprise me also if they took somebody like a guard. Like if they like wanted to take Donovan Jackson or something and fill that right guard position. It wouldn't surprise me if they decided to go somewhere in that respect as well. But yeah, I think wide receiver for them could be a really interesting situation for them as well, right? Because you're right, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, they have their two. But after that, like, do they feel confident enough that like Jahan Dotson and Johnny Wilson and those guys, like, are they the next, in today's NFL, you got to have a strong group of receivers. So
absolutely,
somebody like Ibuka or Burden makes sense here.
I agree. And with that, sorry, my sister's calling me. Let me put that off to the side. With that being said, that was our first all the way round mock draft. I think we're going to be electing to pick one of the wide receivers there, probably just based on how the board fell for the Eagles. But yeah, that was a fun scenario. I thought we hit on a lot of good things tonight and got some thought process out on what's that one thing that could happen on draft night that spirals and trickles down to the rest of the draft and skews things a lot, and that was the Shadur Sanders thing, not being picked in the top 5 and going to at 9 to the Saints. And then picking Hampton top 10 was another thing that was just massive for how the rest of the draft board fell. So I kind of liked the things that we did tonight, Mike. I think we're going to try to probably get another show in next week just because we're so close to the draft and hammer on some more things. Maybe look at some team needs specifically or something like that. But it was a good show tonight, Mike. If you have anything else left to say, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how all this draft stuff plays out, right? Because everything that we just did all stems from Travis Hunter going number 2.
Yeah.
Like, if that just dominoes into everything else, right? everything that happens, right? Shadur Sanders, where the hell is he going, right?
Mhm.
Is there going to be a third QB taken in round 1? Like, what does this mean for teams that need this and whatever? Like, all of that stuff. It's just, this is what makes this shit so fun. It's just, so
Trickle
much.
down in economics.
Yeah.
Just
so
draft.
Love it.
Draft capital is being used here. With that being said, he is Mike Guido. I'm EJ Savage. This is the Gryd Draft Show. We're going to be trying to come back next week. No promises. We're not the most consistent here, but we're trying to make it a good time. We might do some summer scouting. Obviously, not an every week thing, but maybe once a month kind of a thing, just to keep the show going and hopefully grow the base a little bit more. It's fun. We're planning on doing a draft night special where we're going to be going over the picks one by one and breaking them down and what we think about the players. Hopefully we see some crazy stuff, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. But with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Comment, like, subscribe below. Set that notification bell if you can. And with that, peace.